For your entire life, you have believed that money is outside of you, that it must be pursued, earned, and secured by your own hand and your own wit. This is the great illusion. And it is this very illusion that keeps you in lack. You speak of money as a force you must chase, when in truth, it is a spiritual substance awaiting your conscious recognition. It does not move because of markets or labors alone. It moves in harmony with a principle, a law, and this law is activated within the silence of your own being. What if I told you that the very first moments of your waking day hold the key to setting this law in motion? That there is a specific interaction, a declaration made not to the world, but to the infinite within you, that can change the very flow and nature of your supply. Today, you will be initiated into that interaction. You will discover the word that is not a word, the command that is a release, the acceptance that precedes all manifestation. You will learn to speak the truth that rearranges the very atoms of your visible world. This is not positive thinking. This is the practice of the presence of God as your abundant and only supply. Therefore, approach what follows not as a viewer, but as a practitioner. If you are ready to take up this conscious work, seal your intention by subscribing to this channel as an act of confirming your commitment to the path. And if you are present and receptive in this moment, acknowledge it by commenting the number 111, marking this as your point of awakening and agreement. Let us proceed from that foundational realization. You see, to perceive money as a spiritual substance is to undergo a complete and radical reversal of your entire mental framework. It requires you to relinquish the deeply ingrained image of currency, the paper, the coin, the digital number in an account, as the reality. These are but the shadow, the temporary and visible form that the substance takes. The substance itself is the very essence of supply, the animating life, intelligence, and creative power of the universe, seeking expression as your individual experience of sufficiency and harmony. Imagine, if you will, the electricity that powers a city. You do not worship the light bulb or the toaster. You understand they are temporary, changeable endpoints for an invisible, limitless energy. You pay the bill to keep your connection to the grid clear and unimpeded. Your financial life operates on a precisely identical, though higher, principle. The frustration, the strain, the anxiety of lack you feel is not a sign of a failed world or a deficient self. It is the sure signal of a temporary blockage in your conscious connection to that infinite grid of substance. You have been trying to rearrange the light bulbs when the work is always at the level of the connection. Consider your daily interactions with this idea of money. You open your banking app and see a number, and in that instant, a whole drama unfolds, a story of security or fear, of freedom or limitation. That reaction is your truth in that moment. It is a prayer. But what are you praying to? You are praying to the number, to the form, giving it power to dictate your peace. This is idolatry in its most subtle and binding form. You have bestowed upon a symbol the authority of the source. The shift begins when you learn to look at that same number and recognize it for what it is, one of a million possible temporary formations of the substance, utterly fluid and subject to change. Your peace, your security, your worth, therefore, cannot be attached to its current shape. They must be anchored in your conscious union with the invisible source from which all shapes flow. This is the meaning of seeking first the kingdom. Now, bring this into the most mundane moment. You are presented with a bill. The old consciousness seizes it as a demand against a limited pile, inciting calculation and worry. The new consciousness, practicing the recognition of substance, receives that bill as something else entirely. It is not a demand, but an invitation. It is the universe presenting you with a specific form, a need for a certain amount of energy, and asking, are you aware that I, the infinite source, am your supply for this? The bill is not your problem. Your relationship to the source of its payment is the only work at hand. The work is to turn, not to your ledger, but to the inner silence and acknowledge, my consciousness is the very point where this infinite substance becomes form. This need is already met in the divine economy, and I am open and receptive to its perfect manifestation. You are not begging. You are aligning. You are not stating a hopeful wish. You are declaring a spiritual fact from within the kingdom. This transforms every transaction from a tense exchange of scarce goods into a sacred ceremony of circulation. When you hand someone money for their goods or services, you are not losing something. You are participating in the flow of substance, blessing it on its way, knowing it is a limitless current returning to you from another direction. Your hand releasing the currency becomes an act of faith in the continuum of supply. This is why a consciousness of lack creates more lack. It pinches the hose, it fears the flow. And a consciousness of infinite spiritual substance opens the floodgates because it knows giving and receiving are one action in the mind of God. The man who tips generously from a consciousness of abundance is not foolish. He is a master who understands the law of circulation. He is literally priming the pump of his own infinite well. So the struggle ends not with a larger number, but with a transformed vision. Your financial breakthrough will not look like a sudden, magical lottery win. Those shifts can be startlingly rapid. It will most often look like a dissolving of the problem. The bill arrives and, mysteriously, the means are there without the prior strain. An unexpected opportunity aligns with your skill. A previously stuck situation finds a graceful resolution. Why? Because you have ceased to stand in the way of the substance, assuming its necessary forms. You have moved from being a laborer, building a fortress of security, brick by exhausting brick, to being a conscious center through which the infinite organizes, harmonizes, and expresses itself as your life. The weight lifts because you are no longer carrying the universe on your shoulders. You are abiding in it as its beloved expression. Every anxious thought about money you relinquish is a brick removed from the wall blocking your light. Every moment of silent recognition that your good is God's very life expressing as you is a direct infusion of that substance into your affairs. This is the secret, hidden in plain sight. Your awareness of this truth is the activating power. Your consciousness is the loom upon which the formless substance is woven into the tapestry of your visible experience. Therefore, guard your consciousness as the sacred trust it is. Do not let the world's stories of shortage and collapse inhabit it. Retreat often into the silence where the truth of your infinite union with supply is known, not as a theory, but as a living, pulsing reality. From that fortress of inner knowing, you will watch the outer forms rearrange themselves in perfect and often astonishing harmony. The pursuit is over. The recognition has begun. So you have established your fortress of truth in the morning's first light. Now, what is the nature of the word that goes forth from that citadel? This is the crucial discovery, the inner declaration that activates universal law. Understand this. The universe is not a capricious entity waiting to be pleased by your eloquent pleas. It is a perfect, impersonal, and responsive mechanism operating on principles as exact as mathematics. Your consciousness is the variable in the equation. Your thought, imbued with the conviction born of your silent knowing, is the command that sets the principle in motion. But it is not a command shouted into the void. It is a command released in the understanding that it is already so. This is the master key that so few ever fully grasp. Your declaration is not an attempt to create. It is an acknowledgement of what is already true in the realm of pure spirit, an announcement made within your own being that aligns your visible world with that invisible reality. Think of it as tuning a musical instrument. The perfect note of harmony, of infinite supply, already exists as a constant frequency. Your life, however, has been playing out of tune, producing the discord you experience as lack. Your inner declaration is not you creating the perfect note. It is you listening for it, finding it within the silence, and then deliberately tuning the instrument of your consciousness to resonate with it. When you achieve that resonance, the discord cannot remain. It is absorbed, transformed by the dominant vibration of truth. So your statement upon waking, "I am the open conduit for infinite abundance," is not a hopeful fantasy. It is you, the musician, hearing the true pitch in your soul and adjusting your string until the beating of dissonance stops and a single clear tone emerges. From that moment forward, everything you do is infused with that tone. The phone call you make, the email you send, the work you perform, it all carries that harmonic, and it attracts circumstances of the same frequency. Now, let us bring this from the metaphor into the concrete reality of your kitchen, your car, your place of work. You have made your inner alignment. Now, you are faced with a tangible challenge. A client hesitates, a deal seems to stall, an invoice goes unpaid. The old man, the human consciousness, immediately jumps to the level of the problem. It wants to fret, to manipulate, to push, to scheme. This is where you must be vigilant. This is where you practice the declaration not as a one-time morning event, but as a continuous inner posture. You look at the stalled contract and you consciously refuse to engage with it as a problem of lack. Instead, you return inwardly to your declaration. You might silently affirm, "All that is mine by divine right reaches me now in perfect, harmonious ways. I am at peace." Then you release it. You do not clutch it. This release is the proof of your faith in the law. It is you handing the entire situation in trust back to the infinite intelligence that knows the perfect outcome. And here is where the thrill becomes palpable. You go about your business, maintaining your inner tone of peace and assurance. And then something happens. Perhaps it is a sudden, intuitive thought to call an old acquaintance, not out of desperation, but from a genuine nudge. You follow it, and in the conversation, a new possibility emerges unrelated to your initial worry. Perhaps it is the very client who was hesitating who calls back with a change of heart, but on terms even better than you imagined. This is the law in action. Your inner declaration did not magically force that person's hand. It adjusted your own consciousness out of the frequency of anxiety and into the frequency of harmonious solution. From that new frequency, you became a magnet for solutions. Your intuitive faculties woke up. Your perception cleared. You saw opportunities that were always there, but were invisible to a mind clouded by fear. The universal law is this: consciousness objectifies itself. Your world is literally outpicturing your state of consciousness. The declaration is the deliberate choice to set that state, to assume the consciousness of the wish fulfilled. Therefore, watch your inner dialogue as the most important conversation of your day. When the thought comes, "I can't afford that," you are issuing a powerful declaration in the wrong direction. You are commanding the universe to manifest more, cannot afford, situations. Stop that conversation mid-sentence. Replace it with the silent, firm truth from your morning sanctuary: "My supply is infinite and immediate. I am guided to my right expression." Do this not once, but 100 times a day. It is the steady drumbeat that drowns out the chaotic noise of the world. You are not lying to yourself about the visible facts. You are telling yourself a greater truth about the invisible cause. As you persist, a shift occurs. You begin to feel a subtle confidence that has no external reason. You find yourself acting with a calm authority you did not have before. Doors seem to open not by strenuous effort, but by a gentle, natural progression. This is the evidence. You are not moving the world. The world is rearranging itself to reflect the new declaration you have planted and nurtured in the sacred ground of your own mind. The declaration is the seed. Your consistent mental atmosphere is the rain and the sun. And the harvest is an experience of life where need dissolves before it can solidify into a problem, where supply anticipates demand, and where you find yourself living not by effort, but by grace. This is the true liberation, the moment you cease to be a pursuer and become a knower. Moving from pursuit to conscious recognition is the profound shift that marks your passage from a laborer in the vineyard to the child of the house who knows the entire estate is his inheritance. Pursuit is born of the belief in separation. It is the frantic energy of a self that believes its good is out there, in a job, a person, a market condition, always just beyond its grasp, requiring strain, cunning, and exhausting effort to secure. This is the great burden you were never meant to carry. It is the source of all financial anxiety, the chilling fear that your effort may not be enough, that the world may not yield what you require. But I tell you, the moment you turn from that pursuit to the quiet recognition of what already is, you lay down that burden forever. You step out of the competitive race and into the conscious flow. Think of your own life. How much of your energy has been consumed in the pursuit? The perfect resume, the networking event you dread, the forced conversation meant to impress, the constant calculation of whether you are enough, have enough, are doing enough. Feel the tension in that state. It is a state of perpetual mild fear. And fear is a contraction that closes you off to the very substance you seek. Now, contrast that with the energy of recognition. Recognition is an inward movement. It is a pause. It is the act of stopping in the middle of the mental chase and turning your gaze from the horizon. You are trying to reach to the power that animates your very being in this present moment. You are not recognizing a future possibility. You are recognizing a present spiritual fact. I and the Father, the source of all substance, are one. Therefore, all that the Father is, I am an expression. My consciousness is the very place where this infinite supply becomes my visible experience. This recognition is not passive. It is the most dynamically creative act a human being can perform. Let this become practical in your daily affairs. You are faced with a need. Perhaps it is a quarterly tax payment that feels larger than your current reserves. The pursuer immediately springs into action, scoring accounts, thinking of what can be sold, brainstorming side hustles, propelled by a low-grade panic. There is no peace there, only the echo of separation. Now, you, as the practitioner of recognition, take a different path. You sit with the fact of the need. You do not deny it, but you consciously refuse to let it define reality. You close your eyes, if only for a minute. You go beyond the figure, the deadline, the fear. You move inward to the felt sense of life within you. You remember, this life is not mine. It is God's life expressing as me. This intelligence animating my mind is not my personal wit. It is infinite intelligence thinking as me. And then you recognize, if this is true, and it is the only truth, then the need before me is already known within this infinite intelligence. The solution is already formed in the invisible substance. My only work is to bring my consciousness into such a state of peace and receptivity that I become aware of the solution. You release the how. You surrender the timeline. You have changed the entire game. You are no longer a beggar at the universe's door. You are a watchman in your own tower, expecting the arrival of your own goods. This is when life becomes a fascinating demonstration. Having made that inner recognition, you go about your business with a lightness you did not have before. And then watch. An idea comes, a simple, clear idea to organize your finances in a way you hadn't considered, revealing hidden resources, or a past client unexpectedly reaches out with a new project, or you receive a refund you had forgotten. These are not random accidents. They are the direct, lawful outcroppings of your shift in consciousness. You moved from the frequency of chasing to the frequency of receiving, and the universe must correspond. The substance had to take a form consistent with your new, dominant vibration of calm assurance. The tax bill gets paid, not from a place of frantic scraping, but often from an unexpected and graceful flow that leaves you not depleted, but amazed and grateful. This is the thrill of the path. You begin to trust the law more than you trust your own straining effort. Your effort then becomes joyful expression, not desperate pursuit. Your work becomes an outlet for the infinite to flow through you, not a hammer with which you beat your sustenance from a resistant world. You start your day not with the question, "What must I do today to get what I need?" but with the declaration, "I am conscious of my oneness with infinite supply today, and I am alert and receptive to its perfect direction." Then you act, not from lack, but from inspiration. You follow the intuitive nudge. You perform the task at hand with excellence for its own sake. And you watch as the universe uses your inspired action as the very channel through which the recognized substance flows into visible form. The pursuit has ended. The recognition has begun. And in that recognition, you find not only supply, but a peace that no market fluctuation can ever disturb. Now we arrive at the heart of the sustained practice, the living core from which all else flows, the practice of the presence as supply. This is not an intellectual agreement with a principle. It is the moment by moment abiding in a felt reality. To practice the presence is to consciously withdraw your faith from the outer form, the bank balance, the contract, the paycheck, and place it without reservation in the invisible, animating substance that is their only source. It is to feel the reality of God as the very life circulating in your veins, the intelligence forming your thoughts, the energy behind your actions. And then to know with an unshakable certainty that this same presence, being all, must therefore be the substance of your supply. Your good is not something this presence gives you. It is something this presence is expressing as you. When you practice this, you are not a merchant keeping accounts. You are an artist abiding in the source of all color and canvas, knowing your next creation is already formed within that infinite well of creativity. Consider how your attention operates throughout an ordinary day. It is captured relentlessly by objects. The price tag, the monthly statement, the cost of a repair. Each one shouts for your belief, demanding you accept it as the final word on your security. The practice of the presence is the conscious withdrawal of your attention from that shout and its recentering in the silent hum of being. It is like turning from the frantic images on a movie screen to become aware of the steady, pure light of the projector behind you. That light is the presence. All images are but temporary formations within it. So when a financial worry appears on your screen, the practice is not to argue with the image, but to turn inwardly to the light. You remind yourself, this too is only an image. The reality is the light. The light is my supply. Therefore, I am at peace. This turning is a spiritual exercise more potent than any physical labor. It realigns the universe from within your own soul. Let this come alive in a simple, repeated scenario. You are in a grocery store, cart half full. The old thought arises, automatically calculating the total, a slight tension in your chest about the cost. This is the critical moment of practice. Instead of following that thought into a spiral of mental arithmetic and restriction, you pause. You feel the cart under your hands. You feel your breath. You become present. And in that presence, you acknowledge the truth. The life that is breathing me is the same life that grows this food, that inspires the labor that brought it here, that moves the economy in which I participate. I am not separate from this stream of life. I am a conscious part of it. My presence here, my need for nourishment, is part of its perfect design. I trust this intelligence to provide the form for its own expression. You do not then fill your cart recklessly. You proceed with wisdom, but the fear is gone. The transaction becomes an act of communion, not an act of depletion. You pay with a sense of honoring the flow, and you receive your groceries as the gift of life to life. This micro practice, repeated at the gas pump, when paying a utility bill, when considering a purchase, rebuilds your consciousness from the ground up. It transforms every point of seeming expenditure into a point of conscious connection with the source. The profound effect of this practice is that it ends the cycle of feast and famine in your mind. When your sense of supply is tied to the presence, it is constant, unwavering, independent of conditions. You may have much in the bank or little. The practice remains the same. You turn within to the reality that never fluctuates. This stability of consciousness then begins to manifest as a stability in your outer conditions. The wild swings begin to smooth out. You find your needs met with a surprising consistency, not necessarily with extravagance, but with a sure and steady grace that allows you to plan and live from a place of deep trust. The anxiety that once accompanied a thin month dissolves because you are no longer looking at the thin month as your source. You are abiding in the presence as your source, and you watch with curiosity as the presence moves to adjust the form. This is the ultimate thrift, the conservation of your mental and spiritual energy. You are no longer spending that precious energy on worry, on forecasting doom, on mentally battling conditions. That energy is redeemed, gathered back into the center of your being, where it fuels the very power of your recognition and makes your consciousness a more potent magnet for harmonious forms. You begin to live from the inside out. Your inner dialogue shifts from, can I afford it? To, is this in harmony with the flow of the presence moving as me? You make decisions from alignment, not from fear. And in that alignment, you discover a magic far beyond getting what you want. You discover that what the presence wants for you, as you, is infinitely more satisfying, more fitting, and more abundant than the small desires your fearful mind could ever have conceived. The practice becomes its own reward, a perpetual homecoming, and from that dwelling place, you watch in quiet wonder as all necessary things are added, not from the struggle of a separate self, but from the graceful, inevitable unfoldment of the one life you now know yourself to be. This brings us to the final, critical distinction, the line that separates a temporary mood from a permanent state of consciousness, the chasm between this work and mere positive thinking. Positive thinking is a mental exercise, an attempt to coat an existing fear with a brighter shade of thought. It operates on the level of the personal mind, trying to convince itself of a better personal outcome. It says, think good thoughts, and good things will happen. But this is a fragile structure, for when the visible evidence contradicts the good thought, when the check does not arrive, when the deal falls through, the entire edifice crumbles back into the fear it was built upon. It is a battle on the battlefield of effects, and it is a battle the personal mind, watching the outer world, will often lose. What we are engaged in is something categorically different. This is not thinking at all in the common sense. It is knowing. It is not an affirmation of the mind, but an acknowledgement from the soul. It does not seek to change conditions. It realizes a truth that, once realized, must of its own nature change the one who perceives it, and thus his entire experience. Positive thinking is you, as a separate individual, trying to attract money. The practice of the presence is you realizing there is no separate you to attract it. Only the one infinite substance appearing as both the need and the fulfillment, the seeker and the sought. Can you feel the tectonic shift in that? In the first, you are a beggar holding a polished cup. In the second, you are standing in the ocean, realizing you are made of water, and wondering why you ever thought you were thirsty. The positive thinker must constantly pump up his belief against a threatening world. The practitioner rests in a truth that renders the world's threats meaningless shadows playing on a wall. His work is not to fight the shadows, but to remember the nature of the light. Observe this in a practical test. You face a significant financial obligation with no visible means to meet it. The positive thinker will sit down and forcefully repeat, money is coming to me easily and effortlessly. I am abundant. He will try to feel the feeling of having it, and this can have an effect, for it begins to adjust his mental vibration. But underneath, if he is honest, there often remains a subtle layer of anxiety, a hidden timer ticking, a watchful eye on the mailbox or the inbox for the confirmation. His peace is conditional upon the appearance of the form. Now, witness the practitioner of the presence. He faces the same empty space in his visible ledger. He does not deny it. But he immediately turns from that blank space as the ultimate reality. He goes within. He settles into the silence behind all thought. He becomes aware of the I am that he is prior to any problem, prior to any bank account. In that profound quiet, he does not plead. He abides. He lets the truth of his oneness with infinite substance saturate him. He may have no words. He simply knows, in a place deeper than intellect, that because God is, all is well. He then rises and goes about his business with a fundamental indifference to the how and the when. His peace is unconditional, anchored in the eternal is-ness of being itself. He is not waiting for money to prove God's presence. He is experiencing God's presence and therefore knows money, or whatever form is needed, is an inevitable side effect. This is why the results of this practice are often so surprising, so effortless, so seemingly serendipitous. They bypass the strained channels of personal effort because they flow from a surrendered consciousness that has gotten its small, worried self out of the way. The positive thinker is still in the way, managing, manipulating his thoughts, trying to be a better magnet. The practitioner has stepped aside to let the infinite flow through. The solution that comes may have nothing to do with what the personal mind imagined. It may come as an inspired idea that transforms the entire situation, making the original problem obsolete. It may come as a sudden, unexpected provision from a source you had forgotten. It arrives not as a trophy for your positive thinking, but as the natural, logical evidence of a law operating. Consciousness objectifies itself. The consciousness of lack manifests lack. The consciousness of God as supply, manifest as a deep, wordless knowing, must manifest supply. The form is incidental. Therefore, let your practice be one of deepening, not of repeating. Do not treat your morning declaration as a mantra to be chanted, but as a tuning fork to be struck. And then listen for the resonant truth it points to within the depths of your own being. Your aim is not to become a better positive thinker, but to cease being a thinker on the surface of life altogether and to become a knower at its center. When fear arises, as it will, you will not combat it with a brighter thought. You will see it for what it is, a shadow cast by the belief in separation. And you will turn your face back to the light. You will practice the presence. And in that moment, you are not using a technique to get money. You are realizing the truth that sets you free from the very concept of getting altogether. You are home. And from that home, all movement is the graceful, perfect, and thrilling unfoldment of the infinite into the forms of your daily, wonder-filled life.